Ruth Shellhorn was a landscape architect. She practiced from 1933 to 1990, and she practiced primarily in Southern California. She became known for creating or helping to create the Southern California look. And it tended to focus on the bold vegetative forms of philodendron and silhouetted palm trees against the sky. Ruth had a superb education. She went to Oregon State and then transferred over to Cornell University. In all, she was in school for 6 years, and then she ended up leaving Cornell just 4 units shy of her degree because the Depression had made it impossible for her family to go ahead and finance that last 4 units. She came back in 1933, depths of the Depression. There really was not much work, and she started working out of her bedroom with her mother and father yelling at her and saying, "When are you going to make some money?" And for about 10 years, she struggled quite a bit doing small jobs, doing little articles for magazines. She did a lot of drafting for Ralph Cornell, and he helped steer her towards work. And then she did finally get a position working on the shoreline development study and met there the architect, Carl McKelvey. When they finished that study, he took over the Bullocks, the first Bullocks suburban shopping center design, and brought her on with him. And then he was almost immediately asked to become the architect over at UCLA. And he said, "I trust you. You can take on this job. Go ahead." So she took on the job. It was with Welton Beckett, and it was her first really big job. And within just a few months, her husband came home one night and said, "I just quit my job at the Bank of America. I can't take these people anymore." And she said, "Great, I have a job for you." So he and she worked together on Bullocks, thinking that this was going to be a temporary job. And they found they really enjoyed working together. They hired their own construction crews. She took on the supervision. He had no training in landscape architecture at all. In fact, he didn't have a college degree, but he learned Spanish and he took drafting classes. And it functioned pretty much like a junior partner in her firm until almost the time she retired. Her office was very small. Except for her and her husband, they never hired other people except for a period of time when she was working on the UC Riverside plan. Other than that, she worked almost entirely alone. And the fact that she put together 400 projects during her career, given that office structure, I think is quite remarkable. And she often told me that when she finished the design for Bullocks Fashion Square Santa Ana, that she had decided that was her child. She had poured herself into that, and she felt like that was it. If we're going to think about what is left of Ruth's legacy, I think we have to sort of separate it into what's physically left and then what's left philosophically and culturally. Physically, there's very little left. Disneyland, of course, is still there. It changes literally every day. And still, if you're familiar with the original plan and you go to Disneyland, you can walk through the entire place and discern what she did there. And the fact that she had set up certain parameters for design is something that's still respected and observed by the Imagineers who continue to make changes at Disneyland. She was part of a generation that started to look at land not as something to tame and put under the thumb of a designer, but something more sympathetic. She would look at the land and the program and try to decide what would be suitable for it rather than imposing, a very formalistic or otherwise any other kind of program. I think about the work that Ruth did, and I think about her importance, and part of it was that she was a pioneer as a professional woman. I was on a book tour, and a man came up and had bought the book and came up to me and said, "I bought this book not because I care about landscape, but I'm going to read this to my daughter because I want her to have the same kind of gumption that Ruth had."